All right, here we go. We're here with Jeremy Scott, and it's a great pleasure to have you with us on the broadcast.
Yes, thank you.
This is our first time doing a live Elevate Collective broadcast, so we do these things, Jeremy, once in a while for youth pastors, youth leaders, try to train and equip people, answer questions, and just try to help out building youth ministries in our city. So today we're just going live with it. You all the way from Portland.
Yeah.
In the U.S.A, and I guess it's Friday night over there.
It is.
So first of all, I appreciate you giving up your party night in order to interact with us. But over here it's Saturday morning, and probably people just getting out of bed, getting cranking for youth services later in the day. Our youth services in Singapore are primarily on Saturdays, not Wednesdays. So this is kind of youth ministry day. So
Really?
Yeah, probably be a bunch of leaders teams or worship teams tuning in and checking out what's going on, and they'll maybe take a lot of this stuff later to their youth service coming up. So anyway, for those guys that are unfamiliar with you, why don't you introduce yourself, and let's let everyone get to know you and what you do, and then we'll kind of get rolling.
Yeah, my name is Jeremy Scott, and like Jeremy said, I'm from Portland, Oregon, here on the west coast of the United States, and been doing ministry now for, well, mostly as a volunteer for about, I ended up at the church I'm at about 20 years ago. So I've been planted, rooted here at City Bible Church for quite some time, and don't have any plans of leaving. Love doing church, love doing life here. And so I've been involved in youth ministry. I would have started about the same, about 20 years ago when I came here.
Wow.
And yeah, I love youth ministry, love building the local church, just it's where I want to spend my life, you know. We host an annual youth conference called Generation Unleashed, which has grown from about 100 people to about 7,000. And we do that annually. And then we write worship music, and once again, just try to focus on building the church.
Yeah.
So
20 years is a long time, man. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it goes fast.
Yeah. How many albums have you been a part of since you've been there at City Bible?
Maybe 10.
Okay.
I'd say 10.
Yeah, only 10? I mean, that's it. What have you been doing with your life, man? Seriously.
No, I know.
But for those, I don't know, some are probably more familiar with your church, a few maybe unfamiliar, but City Bible has always been kind of a prolific worship church.
Yeah.
Way back, have a great legacy of worship, and Generation Unleashed, of course, 10 albums, maybe a couple of those are church albums too, but quite a lot of Generation Unleashed albums with some great youth worship coming out. A lot of great worship leaders and worship team members. So that, I know I've been really impacted by the worship that you guys have, and a couple times been to the conference, seeing what you guys build and how you guys raise teams. And I think one of the things I liked was maybe kind of the depth of the team, that you didn't just have like one key team of hot shots, but there were many musicians and layers of musicians that were serving there in the ministry and in the church, which I think is what a lot of people, really struggle with. It's hard enough to get like one drummer, like let alone get like 3 or 5 or, whatever it is. So that's been really cool to see. And that's why I thought maybe it'd be great to get you on the podcast, or not a podcast, but broadcast. Wow, it rhymes.
Broadcast.
Tell us a little more about yourself. You're married?
Married. Been married for 12 years. I better know the answer to that one. I've got one kid, a 7-year-old named Brinley, who she loves worship. Loves all things worship. It scares me right now. We're going through the phase of trying to teach her heart before stage. Made the mistake a couple of years ago. She snuck up during conference and actually walked over to the monitor booth in front of 3,000 people and got a mic, because our monitor guy enabled her and gave her a mic, and apparently he had it planned all along. He wanted to come up during second song, and so I look over and she's standing next to me.
That's awesome.
And just going for it. And so now we got to kind of reverse that, and work on that.
That's super fun. So 7-year-old daughter, married for 12 years, you said?
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
great.
12 years.
And then how long have you been on staff at the church?
7 years, just over 7 years. So I was working a career, didn't really have necessarily plans to come to the church. And when my mentor and pastors Doug and Donna left and went and planted a church in Denver, Colorado, our pastor Frank asked me, he said, "Hey, you're coming on staff." And I really didn't have a choice. So I don't regret it though. It's been an amazing ride. And actually we just transitioned pastors to my father-in-law this last weekend. So
cool. That's awesome.
It's been a journey.
Yeah. Crazy. Now, on staff there, are you in charge of all the worship at City Bible Church?
Yeah, so we have 4 campuses, 4 physical locations. We also have a Latino service and a Burmese service, a Sudanese service,
mm-hmm.
and on top of that, and of course, an online campus. But 4 physical locations, and I would oversee all the worship production, audio, video, lighting, and most stuff that has to do with the weekend service.
Wow.
It's boring. Nothing to do,
Yeah, I'm sure, man. That's awesome. That's a big scope, man. Well, hey, we got youth leaders, youth pastors tuning in, wanting to know how to solve all of their worship worries. And for the last month, I've been telling them you're the guy that has all the answers and basically going to help them fix all their problems. I think for me as a youth pastor, definitely raising worship teams is a huge part of what you have to do. Everyone wants a youth service. Most people have a youth service, but then once you have a service, you got to have a band. And there's been seasons where we had a great band, and then seasons where like one key person left to go study somewhere or do something. It can be kind of devastating, like a roller coaster. And I know a lot of people experience the same thing, or even if they have technical musicians, maybe on the spiritual side, you need to raise them. And there's just so many different aspects to it. So I thought we could try to address some of that. And maybe I'll cut you loose a bit, share some things that are on your heart, and we can interact a little on it, and try to take some questions from people as well. Let me just say this to everybody that's tuning in. If you want to interact and ask questions live, if you're on our website, elevatecollective.com, that's cool. If you hop to the actual YouTube page and YouTube channel, you can comment live there and ask questions. Or you can get on Twitter and tweet us questions at Elevate Collective, but that's COLLECTV. No I, no E. Elevate Collective. So Elevate COLLECTV, because Elevate Collective apparently is too long to be a Twitter handle all by itself. So we had to eliminate some vowels. So anyway, that's hey, youth ministry problems. So anyway, Jeremy, why don't you tell us some of the things that are on your heart about worship? We'll interact a little on it, and people will send questions in, and we'll do some questions after this.
Yeah. Well, first off, man, youth ministry is it's life-giving to your church. I've watched it over the years, and kind of our problem in the past is that the youth has been where all the excitement, it kind of drove our weekend services. We found that what was happening in the youth carried into the weekends and has added so much life into our church as a whole. Youth is where the pipeline starts. We've actually gone so much as to try to work with kids and get our what we call edge kids, is what we call them, city kids. And we start them in first grade and get them going in hopes that by the time they get to our GU age, which would be young, your youth, they'd be ready to go and ready to worship. So I'd love to share with you maybe 5 things, 5 main points. Young people love to rally around vision. Of course, everyone loves vision. If you don't, it's hard to get people to give to just need or to lack.
Right.
You find that if there's a vision, it says in Proverbs, it says without vision, the people perish. I think without vision, lots of times it's hard to get people involved. If you're just, hey, we need this, our band is, sorry, it's pathetic, but that's why we're talking to you. We'd like you to step forward and get involved, because we're hoping you could maybe up that by just a little bit. I think my first point would be, if you're a youth pastor, a youth leader, a worship pastor, worship leader, have a dream or a vision. Dream or vision.
Good.
I look at you guys and I'm inspired. You guys are they're blowing it up over there in Singapore. And I'm always inspired just to see what's happening and see what God's doing. I believe God's got vision, unique vision for every youth pastor, every worship leader, songwriter, no matter what level you're at. Ask God for a vision and a dream and share that. Share that with the people around you who you're trying to get involved. Dream big as a leader and cast the vision. Ask God to speak to you. It may look and sound impossible where you're currently at. It may scare you, but step out and believe. I always say, have more vision. And I don't always live by this, but I got to remind myself, always have more vision than I currently have a resource for, right?
Yeah.
I just think as a leader, you always have to think that way.
That's so good.
A scripture for you guys when I was thinking about everyone who'd be listening to this was Isaiah 43:18-19. But forget all that. It is nothing compared to what I'm going to do, for I'm about to do something new. See, I've already begun. Do you not see it? I will make a pathway through the wilderness, and I will create rivers in the dry wasteland.
Cool.
Isaiah 43:18-19. I love that. Believe God for fresh vision and dreams that you can share with your team. It will inspire. People will come. They'll give their time. They'll want to get involved if you have a vision.
Yeah.
Number two, building a solid foundation. You got to build on the right values. As you're trying to recruit people, I think it's so important. One of the biggest things I'd say is, what are you placing value in? Building your worship culture. Is it on production? Is it on production? Is it on the presence? Build on character. I'm going to give you four character qualities, things that you should build on character. Place higher value on character than on gifting. I know that's tough. Sometimes when we have people come in that seem like they've got all the skill, all the talent, and it's so easy to move forward and want to fast track them, get them on the stage. But 9 out of 10 times I pay the price when I violate that, over character and try to rush them there because of a need or a hole or a void that you see, within your team.
Yeah, very true.
It'll come back and bite you. And I know that from personal experience, because even though I'm preaching this, I violate a lot of these at times. And come on, we all do, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And value character over gifting. It's tough, but I'm telling you, if you value character, you won't be disappointed. The culture of unity. Worship is such a heart thing, and it's a team thing. When you have a band that's together, if there's not unity, man, it's tough. It's a tough go. It's tough to go after the presence and ask God to come and bless this thing when we're quarreling, when we have different vision, when we're complaining that guy, you can hear him louder than this guy, or that bass guitar over the electric guitar. We gotta raise up a culture and guard unity. Place high value on that. Build a culture of honor. Honor leadership, honor people, honor the platform, and above all, honor God. Build a culture where going after God's presence is the focus, not production, not performance. Presence. At least here, that's what it's about. We're going after God, and God's presence. People are changed, lives are changed, and I think at the end of the day, every musician, there's just something special about being up there, and being just the vessel that God had used. When you see His presence fall in a real and tangible way, you see lives changed.
Yeah, excellent.
So value presence before the production and above the production at all times. Once again, it's easy to put someone on the stage. It's really tough to take them off. And so many times you find that it's not just that person. You're trying to, not that you're trying to take them off the stage, but you're trying to work through something with them. And it doesn't go as planned, because you rushed it initially, you put them up there because of the skill, not the character. And what's always sad is when it affects the people around, because you put them in a place of influence, and they have influence over the rest of the band. And we have had a whole band. So I ended up becoming involved is because about 20 years ago, a whole band left. Wow. Just left the church, and so it hurts. It hurts. One thing, I think I call these the 4 I's. Intimacy, identity, influence, and impact. I'll say it again. Intimacy, identity, influence, and impact. And they have to go in that order. You know, it comes out of an intimate relationship with our Creator that we find identity.
Yeah.
Out of identity, when we know who God's called us to be and His purposes for us, then we can have influence. And out of influence, we have an impact. And you can't put them in any other order. It's really funny that they have to go in that order. You have to have intimacy with our Creator, spend time with Jesus, spend time in His presence, especially as a worshiper, as a leader, as a musician. You know, we can't lead people to a place that we don't frequent ourselves.
Right. It's so good.
How are we gonna lead our churches into that? Call those the 4 I's. Number 3, the next point I hit, have a dream and a vision that young people will rally around. Number 2 was build a solid foundation. Number 3 is share and teach on worship often with your worship community. You know, just keep it center. You know, the reason why we're doing it. We got to keep that in front of them. Don't lose focus of who worship is for and why we're doing it. Constantly remind your community of why we do what we do and who we do it for. You know, it's easy, even as a leader, to lose focus and get just a little bit off. I know if I don't keep it right in front of me, keep spending time with Jesus and keeping the main thing, we slowly just kind of get a little off, and then you got to correct. Number 4, build a community where the worship crew does life together. I think the community piece has been such a big one for us. I'm talking about hanging out outside of the stage, outside of the church. Yeah, having people over to our houses. You know, one of the best things we ever did, which we stumbled on kind of by accident, but that was to start including the audio guys in everything we did. You know, those people running audio, or that people running a person running graphics, pro presenter, or the kid running lighting. You know, include them. They're every bit as important as I am. Yeah. And I really feel it's changed something in our culture. We have a lot of audio guys now, a lot of lighting people wanting to be involved in lighting and graphics, pro presenter, and I believe it's because that community aspect. And I do think you can include people, even, you know, I know I talked about not fast tracking people too much as far as the gifting piece, but someone who's not on the stage yet, who comes in and has a heart for worship, have them over to your house, include them with that group, let them, you know, disciple them before they ever way before they ever hit the stage or considered for it.
Yeah, it's good.
Make it fun and do life too. Like I said, you know, I don't believe we're meant to, and I know you don't believe this, we're not meant to jump around from church to church or community to community. I believe we were created to do life with people for the long haul, have lifelong relationships. And I believe just even that alone will help us build our worship teams and keep them. Not that we want to keep our worship teams intact. Obviously, people move on and life happens. You get called to somewhere else. But I believe people are supposed to belong. Yeah, and have a place in life. Number 5 this is where we start talking about skill, musicality. Challenge and set the bar high. You know, David did play skillfully before the Lord. Yeah. You know, and when we set the bar high, I think first off, encouragement will go a long way. Well, sometimes it's easy to, you know, you're not playing that part right, or why didn't you come prepared? And I have those conversations. I try not to ever have them on the stage. And I would always try to lean towards encouraging someone versus tearing them apart. You don't know what kind of week they had. And encouragement just goes so much further in someone. It might be that thing propels them so musically and skillfully, but live on encouragement, meaning encouraging others. Secondly, in that, for your worship leaders or main band people, you need to model being skillful yourself. If you're a worship leader, a musician, worship pastor, man, model excellence. If we're asking them to hit this bar, we better ourselves, you know, do everything we can to model that. It's inspiring too. You know, I'm actually trying to find a new vocal teacher to take vocal lessons from because I haven't arrived. You know, just like holiness is a highway, not a destination. You know, I was inspired. I was watching something with U2 with Bono talking, and the guy is still taking vocal lessons.
Wow.
He's 50 years old. You think that guy's achieved all the success in the world is, and he just says, you know what, I still want to get better.
Wow.
I want to continue to grow. And I think it's inspiring. So especially as a leader, if we're asking people to hit a certain bar, make sure we're leading with excellence and make sure we're modeling that.
Awesome.
Some practical ways, for me, it started with private lessons. And I think for most people, it really does, at least over here in the States. If you have access to getting lessons, and especially challenging other people who want to get involved to take lessons, to learn their basic theory, private lessons are great. YouTube, there's tons. I mean, as you know, online now, you can find about everything too. I think but if you have a new person that's wanting to get involved, and I don't know, maybe you do auditions, or maybe you have them just come hang out with the band to get a feel of where they're at.
Yeah.
Just send them away and say, you're not good enough. Put them on a track. Help them to get on a track to growth, to be on the worship team in the future. Private lessons is a good way to do that. I don't know if you guys ever do anything like this, but we do what we call worship workshops. Now this is kind of funny because it was actually inspired when we got the idea. It was from that Jack Black movie. School of Rock is when we got this idea. I was a lot younger and I wanted to call it School of Rock, and Donna Lassett was like, no, we're not calling it School of Rock, but that's a great idea. Let's do it. All kids, everyone, if you're a musician, it's why Guitar Center exists. People want to just go play and play with other people, Music is meant to be played with a group, I believe. Obviously you got that classical person. I don't turn on classical. It's not soothing to me, I think music's best when it's played as a group. And we do a thing called worship workshops. And it is that place where you can come make mistakes, grow in your gifting. What a worship workshop looks like is we'd open it normally to everyone. For us, we got quite a few musicians. So we have a key band there that's going to help some of the younger ones and some of the people who are getting involved on each specific instrument. What it would look like, we normally do it on a Saturday morning. We'd start at 9 a.m. We might go from 9 to 9:30 with just some light snacks that we provide, cheap, some coffee, some juice, and some muffins or something. And while people are hanging out fellowshipping for that first half hour, we'd have a couple songs playing over the PA system that we're going to teach them that day. Mm. So they're hearing the songs being played over and over. At about 9:30, we'd start. And we'd actually have everyone go to their instruments, their stations, keyboards with keyboard players, drummers with the drummers, electric guitar players with electric guitars, and so on and so forth. And we'd have our main band, our best musicians who know the song and who've prepared for it. They would play through it a couple times, and then we'd start rotating in the other musicians. And they'd get a chance. If everything crashes, it's okay. It's practice. But just that, it's been a huge community piece for us, as well as a growth and a challenge for a lot of our younger people. At about 11 o'clock, we started about 9:30. At about 11 o'clock, we'd shut it down, have everyone put down their instruments, gather around the piano or guitar, and we'd worship. We'd worship together for just a little while, maybe 15 minutes, We have a word that was shared, maybe either by the youth pastor or by the worship pastor or the worship leader, I don't know, whoever is there that would take the lead, and share a quick 5-10 minute word, DNA of worship or something that's on your heart. Then we might break into groups and pray for each other. What do you need prayer for? How you doing spiritually? Break into groups of 2 or 3 and just, it's been a great thing for us. It ended about 11:35, 11:45 people's time. If you scheduled something from 9 to 12, I'd always try to end a little bit early so people feel like their time was valued. But that would be kind of what a worship workshop would look like for us.
That's cool.
And that's another way, a practical way to get people involved. On the main, your best musicians, if there's a scenario of best, or even if there's a scenario you only have a guitar and a drummer and a keyboard player, I would worship workshop. I mean, it's great,
How often would you do something like that?
We've gone through seasons where we do it every other week before our youth service.
Yeah.
which was kind of cool. So everyone came and would gather. Our youth services normally are on Wednesdays at 7:00. So it's a little harder for us being that it's midweek.
Yeah.
Up at 4:30 and go till about 6, and right before youth service, and then they'd stay for, the ones who weren't playing that Wednesday were just there for workshop would stay for. So,
Cool.
But we've done it where we've gone once a month for a season. Right now, our challenge is the team's grown a bit, and we're, multi-sites kind of changed all that.
Yeah.
All gather together. We have about 250 in our worship community. That's musicians and singers and stuff. So just a whole nother dynamic and honestly, we still need to grow because we're adding services, and Kingdom's always expanding. And also, I just think the more the merrier.
Yeah.
To raise up and release people. It's not about if I want to be measured by how many people I've released and had the opportunity to help raise up,
Yeah.
That's worship workshop. I think that's one of the best things you can do. If you believe that you have a calling to songwrite, I think songwriting can be great for a teen. You might not know what you're doing, but you start somewhere. We didn't know what we were doing. We just knew that this vision had been cast by our youth pastor. We were 150 people back in the day for our youth conference. I know that would be big. I mean, that's big for a lot of places, but that was, what? We believe God's called us to write songs, and we didn't know how to write a song.
Yeah.
It was kind of ironic because one of the first songs that was written, Believe, that Donna wrote, ended up on a Hillsong album.
Yeah, I remember that.
And here we don't even know what we're doing,
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that God looks at the heart and he chooses to use people who are, but I think songwriting can be a great thing, even just to, really go alongside vision.
Yeah.
It's exciting, you might not write the most killer song right out of the gate, but it's for God. It's not for, he's pleased with it. He's looking at the heart. Where you start with songwriting, I'd say your youth pastor might have a thought. You guys might be in a series. That's a great place to start. Ask God,
Sure.
Start jotting down thoughts about what that next series is coming up and try to write about it, and gather a small team together of your core musicians, practice and experiment, see if God doesn't breathe on it and to help you finish a song. I think that's can be a killer way to help build a team.
Would you guys get together as a team to write songs, or more individualistic? How would you approach that? Especially at the beginning.
Oh man, it's songwriting's so funny because there's just no one method. We still just do it all different ways. I know this. We've been best with deadlines. Having a deadline when the youth pastor says, we have a worship night coming up or a church night and we want to have a song for it. It's 3 months out.
Yeah.
It's having a deadline for whatever reason. There's something about starting something and completing it.
Yeah, that's good.
No matter whether that song's a 2, whether it's a 8 or a 10, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that you started it, believe God for it. He stirred something in you and your team got it completed. A lot of it happens individually. For me, the thought. I feel like God will put something in my heart and it'll be something that's just stirring a little, it could be the subject of the cross. It could be, you're just thinking about redemption, and you end up, for whatever reason, how it is, something that's just burning in you, and you end up putting it to paper, just like writing, and continue to work that day after day.
Cool.
The other way songs come to me is at a devotional time. I think the best way, the coolest way to write is when you're just spending time in God's presence and you've got your guitar, you've got your piano, no one's around, and you're just worshiping. I feel like some of those are the best kind of songs. If I were to guess how Bethel, really the great songs are written, these Holy Spirit anointed songs, it's out of those moments.
Yeah.
It's out of those moments, out of prophetic moments. It could be a prophetic moment in a service. We've taken some of those now. Something just happened in service that was sung over and over, a tag that's simple that you can grab hold of, ends up ends up becoming a song.
Wow. That's really cool. Powerful thoughts, man. I think it's definitely challenging to a lot of the youth leaders and stuff that are tuning in. I think it's right where it's at. Great idea, I think, with the worship workshops, and to hear kind of what you guys face and what you do. I'm just thinking about some of the things you said, and maybe one of the things you said, we already talked a little bit about, but I was thinking maybe you could expand it. There's probably two kinds of people that'll watch this. One is youth leaders or youth pastors. The other is youth worship team members.
Yes.
And probably some of the things might be more cut and dry for like a youth worship team member or worship leader. I think something that maybe is harder for people to get a handle on is, as a youth pastor, like what's my role to raise the worship team, or what are some ways I can encourage them, especially youth pastors that may be totally non-musical, not, interested, not that they don't like to worship God, but they're not really, in the worship ministry, they don't have a background in that. If you got those kind of musical pastors, maybe it comes a little more naturally, but I'm thinking about the guy that he wants to help. And I see maybe like some people sort of disconnect themselves from the worship team, and because they just don't know what to do. So hey, just leave them, and whatever you guys do, that's great. But a couple of things you said about like setting deadlines, setting goals, casting vision would be kind of a pastoral function. I was thinking maybe you can just touch base on that and expand that a little bit. What would you see as some important things that pastors do, the key leader does, that may not have anything to do with playing an instrument or worshiping in itself, but it helps to build and frame the worship team?
Yeah, I think once again, there's power in unity, and to couple up with the youth pastor and to get after that vision that the youth pastor, is sharing, I think is just, man, for me, it was my youth pastor. Still, it was Doug and Donna that have had the most impact in my life. I think the biggest thing, because they believed in me.
Yeah.
They saw, I'm going back to where I was when I first got involved, and potential and a whole lot of stupid, but they believed in me.
Yeah.
And we weren't, I think not having if you didn't have any musical ability, didn't understand that world, you know how to pastor, you know how to pick, and build up people of character, young people of character. And once again, character is, I think, building on that piece. That'll take, gifting without character is a tough go, I think the gifting can be developed, and they can develop that on their own, meaning the musician, the worship leader, just turn them on to some good resources. Now there's so many resources, from Planet Shakers to Bethel to Hillsong, instructionals, and you could seek some outside counsel as well. Asking other churches, like I'm sure you guys have a lot of great musicians and people that could help that youth pastor and turn them on to some, just even a track to put their people on.
Yeah.
To love that person, cast a vision, and include them in your world.
Yeah, that's really good.
And man, I just think they'll give everything they have. I know I did. And
so kind of like really seeing the potential in the people and calling those gifts out would be a huge pastoral function. Challenging them to go for that, to develop that gift. I think that's a big deal. I think even in our youth ministry, a lot of our musicians, worship leaders would have been people like that, like you. And it took a pastor or a leader to go and like pull them out. They were so gifted in the end, but at the beginning didn't seem. But if no one had called it out of them, they probably would have never come to that level. So that's quite a big deal, I think. Let me address maybe a couple other questions here. What's the primary way that you train and recruit musicians right now, either for youth ministry or the church? I don't think it matters.
Well, recruiting, we're kind of going back to an audition type of thing, but it's not a full-on audition, because technology now, we're saying, hey, we're going to say, send us a video of playing these 2 songs. It could be Scandal of Grace, or play one of those songs, record yourself playing it or singing it, and send it to us, and fill out this online form, just a little about yourself. and that would be an initial contact point. One thing we're going to do at all our campuses, because someone kind of stumbled on it at our main campus. He started, our worship culture is called Bridge City.
Yeah.
And guy in our ministry started this thing. He said, I want to start a Bridge City Life Connect group. We said, okay, that's cool. Yeah, it's just a Connect group. We didn't think much of it. And, he has about 80 to 100 people in that thing.
Wow.
Within a year and a half. And I'm going, where did these people come from? 100 people. And I'm going, and some of them are talented. They're gifted. I'm saying, why did they not come forward? If you're a church that has a full stage, meaning you've got a guitar player, a piano player, a bass player, people look at the stage and say, oh, they don't need me. There's room. They make assumptions, So I'm just realizing, man, we got people sitting out in the seats. I'm just being raw and honest that are being overlooked. They don't, those people. So we're starting small groups, a Bridge City Life small group on each campus, with people that get out and just love people, get the feelers out to be a part of this small group. And they're not promised anything. She's like, hey, are you a worshiper? Would you love to gather with us and potentially get involved in the future? We meet every couple of weeks, and we do life together.
Yeah.
And we'll also once in a while jam together. So
it's not necessarily you're in the small group that you're in the worship team, but that becomes like a feeder, and you can identify people through it, build the community kind of.
Yeah, and they've been doing a once a month just worship night. So they'll assemble a band of the people who are qualified, and they'll play. Yeah. And so I've been kind of sneaking over there now periodically to check it out and to see who's in there, see who's playing.
Yeah.
And I'm going, man, I'm really encouraged. You just don't know.
Yeah.
And hey, it's a great question. I think a small group, something as simple as a worship small group.
Yeah, that's a great
in
idea.
Your church. You have people even other than the worship pastor that just know people who know people, and
yeah.
We
got another question here I thought was good. Shifting from like looking at the worship team, you might have a great culture in the worship team, some of those things that you already mentioned in terms of unity and, passion, and maybe that's great. Maybe the pastor even is a real worshiper, got a heart for that. But what about within the whole youth ministry? How do you build a worship culture in the youth ministry so that you don't just have a great worship team, but you have a worshiping youth ministry?
Well, we always say, man, I think so much of it is the youth ministry. How have they been taught what worship is? Our church worships me, and I believe it's because we teach on it once in a while.
Yeah.
It's just not something that people don't just show up and be like, I want to lift my hands. I want to pray.
You're talking about like preaching on the Sunday or on the Wednesday, whenever the services are, doing some instruction on that.
Yeah. Even as a worship leader, a lot of times, whether it's at youth or our main weekend services, even as the worship leader, taking a moment and, depending on, maybe this isn't acceptable with your pastor, maybe it is, but lifting a hands to me is a sign of surrender.
Yeah.
And that's it. Hey, this is just me saying that, God, I need you. I'm desperate for you. I surrender. You may be out there tonight and you've had a rough week. You've had, when I lift my hands, it's simply just a sign of surrender. And, I begin to just kind of take little moments to teach every week. You'd hope it would be something that would just be caught, but I think we got to teach it. We got to teach it in the youth ministry. Prayer and intercession is, I think, even comes before that. If there's a atmosphere of prayer, start there. I haven't really heard of a church that doesn't pray. Spend a little more time, lead your youth ministry
on somewhere, man.
Yeah, put a little more prayer into your youth service and see what happens. Some prayer and intercession. Go out, pray for your city, pray for your youth ministry, pray for revival, and it begins to stir something. It directly affects the worship. Prayer and worship go hand in hand.
Excellent.
You'll see the worship go to a new depth.
Yeah, I believe that. A couple kind of related questions. These are two different questions, but I think they'll probably be similar. Number one, say you've got an existing team. What would you say are some keys to raise the quality of the team you've got? The musicians, maybe they came in and they're good, but after a while they get kind of stuck and they're just been, doing the same little riff for the last 5 years. And then second, kind of related, when new guys come in and join the team, how do you ensure the quality of the team, or maybe better put, quality of the service doesn't drop as you're adding new people inside?
Well, as far as the quality, we're going through a season right now where we haven't actually done, for our weekend services, we haven't done practices for a while, meaning a separate day. It's always show up for the service, hour and a half early, and we practice there. We use a thing called Planning Center, where all the songs are up, vocal parts are up, all the resources there. It's on you to learn it and show up prepared.
Yeah.
I think we're going to go back to adding in a Thursday night practice for our Sunday. Is everything.
Yeah.
I really do. You might, as the musician or worship leader, you might, you can never really tell with yourself as much that you're growing. It's always the youth pastor or someone else who says, man, the team's been growing, Repetition's where it's at. I really do believe that. And of course, like I said, the lessons and getting online and,
sure,
putting it on your own time to try to improve in your gifting. The second question was your second question was,
when you're adding new guys in, how do you ensure like the quality of the service doesn't drop? Do you have a method for that, or kind of a strategy, how you pace that out and how you do it?
Yeah, we would, especially right now, we wouldn't try to build like band. We're always going to mix in, the new people, and just always have a mix in our teams. You get better by playing with better people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the best thing we can do for a couple, a new bass player, I'm going to put them with a good drummer. I might put a new bass player who's, not as skilled I might put them with one of our best drummers. Yeah. Our best drummer would even work with them, and they talk about, laying those bass lines down, same as the kick. And, but we'd couple them up. We might put a newer electric guitar player on with U.S.A, our main guitar player, and opportunity. And we find that normally doesn't take down the level of the service. You just try to keep all the services the same by always integrating some new people.
Cool. Very cool, man. Well, hey, we're going to get ready to kind of close this off because I think we've already exceeded most people's attention spans for internet videos. But a lot of great stuff here. And I think maybe you can give just a closing thought, to worship leaders, especially youth worship leaders, youth worship team members. If you could say one thing to them, would you just address them and, from your heart, maybe challenge them a little bit before we sign off today?
Yeah. I'd, to the worship leader, the worship pastor, youth worship leader, musician, man, get after God's presence. It's, life is just so much easier when we lay down our agendas, when we can sync with the pastor or the youth pastor.
Yeah.
For me, I'm operating from a place of peace when I can just put my own agenda aside and say, man, I'm here to serve the house. I'm here to build the house, whatever that is, and get to the river in your own personal life. As I said earlier, you can't lead people into the presence. You can't lead them to a place you don't frequent yourself. Spend time in God's presence. If you're having trouble breaking through, and you're saying, man, I get up and struggle with ADD like me, getting into God's presence. Sometimes we get in this mindset that we have to go 1, 2, 3 right down the list. I'm going to do my prayer list here, and then I'm going to read my scripture, and I'm going to mix it up, turn on some worship music. We serve a God who just wants to meet with you. If it was works-based, I wouldn't be, salvation isn't based on that. And it's God wants to meet with you. He wants to spend time with you. Set aside time, turn on some worship music, and begin to just stir things up and wait on him. It's to get to the river, and get close to God, and the rest will happen,
That's awesome. Appreciate it, man. Well, listen, I want to thank you for your time. We're going to wrap this up, and I'm sure we'll have another opportunity do something like this again sometime. But I think a lot of great keys, a lot of great insights. Appreciate you carving out time on your Friday night for us all the way here in Singapore. For everybody that maybe tuned in really late because you couldn't wake up, it's going to be archived on the site. It'll just stay there. The same page you're on, you can start from the beginning. ElevateCollective.com. It's there. But thank you to Jeremy Scott. Appreciate it, man, and hope you have a great night.
God bless you guys.
All right.